Hey everyone, this is virtually BGCMC. I'm Mr. Jonathan. In this video, we're going to draw Spider-Gwen, and the focus of this drawing is going to be what they call gesture, or the pose. Not just the pose, but also the movement and the rhythm within that pose. So we're going to start off with an oval for the head. And in a lot of our drawings, we start with the basic shapes to build the head and the body. But in this drawing, our basic shapes are not going to be the usual square, circles, rectangles, things like that. We're going to be working with what we call gesture lines. And these lines are basically the lines to capture the movement of the pose, like I said. So we're going to get the oval for the head in place first, and then from here we're going to move to the torso. Now with the torso, what we want, we're going to start here on the side of the head, and we want a nice curve and bend in this line here. Notice how smooth I'm drawing my lines and how free my arm is moving. So when you're trying to capture the gesture or the pose, what I try to do is, well, first, I don't worry too much about the actual shape or proportions. I'm just trying to get how the body is moving. And that's why I'm using these big, smooth, curvy lines, because if you draw your gesture with very straight and stiff lines, then that's how the pose is going to look at the end when you start adding the details on top. Now what I did here, I made sure there's a good bend and arch in the torso, and then now we're going to add the limbs. The arm here is, I'm picturing the shoulder here, and the arm is shooting out this way. And again, if I make this line very straight, the pose is going to end up looking really stiff in the end, which is what I don't want, because this character, Spider-Gwen, is very graceful with her movements. And actually what I was picturing with this pose is something like a ballerina or a gymnast, especially in the legs and how she wears the ballerina shoes. So if you think about that stuff, it actually can help you capture the pose even better. Okay, so we got this line coming up, and I'm also curving it a little bit this way, and then going down here and meeting the body. Leave some room up here for the hand. I might have gotten a little bit close to the edge, so I might have to make the hand kind of small. But again, while you're capturing the gesture, don't even worry at this point about getting the right proportions, meaning if your torso is a little bit long or short, that's okay. Even the arms, if they're a little bit long or short, don't worry about that, or even the thickness, because as we add the details, you could always go back and adjust that kind of stuff. So moving down to the legs here, I want this leg feeling like it's really shooting out in the same rhythm as the arm here. So I'm going to start at the top of the leg and match that curve. Usually people's legs are longer than their arms, so I'm going to make this line go out a little bit longer. And I'm picturing this bending all the way to the toe here. Now for the bottom part of the leg, you're going to see how it has all these forms here and contours. But for now, all we're gonna do, again, to capture the pose, is to draw a big curve this way. Remember, we're not worrying about details yet, which these would count as details. So we're gonna go out this way, and then this leg is gonna come here, curving again, right out to the opposite side, but then we're gonna put a big bend in the knee here. Okay. bottom part of the thigh, and this part of the leg is bending back and around this way. So now with all our gesture lines, we have all this movement moving throughout the body. You could see the rhythm coming through here, going around here and kicking out there. You could even follow a rhythm going through here. And that's what I mean by the gesture. Worrying about the pose and how the character is moving, when you're focusing on gesture, it is just as important as all the details and the forms that we're going to add. So now that this is in place, I feel pretty good about how everything is posed. Now we're going to start adding the details. And you can see how when you get this in place, how this is going to easily turn to this. I feel like this sometimes is most of the work. Okay, now getting into the details. First thing gonna do, add a midline for the head. Her head is turned a bit this way, so I'm gonna add the midline a little bit off to the side. And then from here, I wanna work with the hood. Actually, what could also be helpful is if you draw a midline for the body. So the center of her body is actually turned this way, the opposite of her head. So if you draw a midline for the body going through here, this could be helpful as well. So this is what I'm gonna do. Working with the hood first, I'm gonna start with this part at the center of the body, and then the hood is gonna go up here. Okay, and then wrap around to the center of the head where you have this point. So we're not getting away from all the foundations of drawing that we've learned before. We're still, even though we're using a new skill with this rhythm, we're still using the things we learned, like midlines and guidelines, to help us along the way. So now we have the point of the hood here. Now we're gonna bring it out past the head and curve it back in here. Once I get to the arm, I wanna start turning the hood in. And now as I go back in, my target is gonna be back here, so we can make this point. If your hood overlaps the chin of your head, that's okay. I actually think it looks pretty good that way. But if your pose is just a little bit different from mine, that's okay too. This part of the hood might not even cut across the chin for you, and that's okay. All of our drawings are gonna look a little bit different. And the goal is not to make yours look exactly like mine, but just to get a drawing that looks good for you. All right, so we got the hood in place, the inside part. Now the outside of the hood is gonna come up here. And I like to keep it just a little bit above the oval that we drew for the head. To me, that gives the feeling that the hood is actually another layer that's resting on top of the head here, if you just give it that little extra space. Okay, and then I'm gonna wrap it around all the way to this side here. There we go. I'm gonna start drawing some of my lines a little bit darker, just so you could see the difference of what's going to be part of the final drawing and what was used as a guideline. Okay, so got the head in place, or the hood. Now with the eyes are pretty simple. We're going to start at the center and just curve up this way, still using this midline to guide us. And then here on the bottom, this line is bit straighter. This line here on the bottom part is going to curve up and around. Okay, being covered by the hood just a bit. Here we're going to go straight across and then go up this way and this way. So you want this eye to rest all the way to the edge of the head, because this is the eye that's turned away from us. Okay, darken up the side of the head here and here. And then we're gonna add a little hint of the neck coming down this way, just so it doesn't look like her body or her head is floating outside of her body. And then also on the inside of her hood, she has this web pattern. So an easy way to start the web pattern is to draw the lines going out and then connecting them going across like this. Okay. You could just fit in as many webs as you can. There might not even be a lot of room here for you to fit some webs, and that's not a big deal. Just fit them in however you can. There we go. Okay. Nice. And just to clean up along the way, and so you could see it more clearly how the drawing should be turning out, I'm gonna get rid of some of these guidelines as we draw. All right. So as I said, a lot of the work was done for us already with putting these gestures in place. So from here, I'm gonna darken up the arm. And in the future, as we draw more and learn about the body parts and the human form, we're gonna add a lot more structure and muscles and things like that to the drawing. But for now, I'm just gonna use the motion here of the gesture for the final form. And then this line, I actually want to make it look more like one entire line curving all the way down. If you could see, when we made our guideline, we made one line and then it stopped and then went into the body. But I'm gonna try to adjust that just a little bit and curve it all the way through like that. To me, it just gives a lot smoother motion in the pose and a lot more rhythm. So I'm gonna keep it like that. I'm gonna do the same thing with this arm. I'm gonna darken up here, and then here I'm gonna turn this into a big S curve, nice and smooth. So an S curve is a line with two curves in it, like the letter S, and it's gonna curve all the way down to here. All right. So with the legs, we're gonna do something a little bit different here. We're gonna add some of that muscle and structure to the body, but the top part of the leg, I'm gonna stick to this gesture line that we drew, the rhythm. And then here, I'm going to add that shape of the foot, but I'm gonna keep all these shapes following this rhythm here. So for the foot, we're gonna point the toe here, bend it, and get into the heel, little bump for the heel. And then here for the ankle, going into the calf, we're going to draw an S line. So this is gonna go up a little and then curve for the calf. Okay, see, and I'm still following that rhythm line here. And then here, the bottom of the thigh is gonna curve out this way. And the thigh on this side is going to connect to the thigh on this side, so I'm gonna curl this way. I also want to point out that the curve of these contours here are the opposite curve of the rhythm of the gesture. But even so, even though they're curving opposite ways, you still get that movement because we set the pose in place in the beginning. Okay, and then here as well. Then this leg, gonna follow this going around. Maybe the knee is a little bit boxy for me, so I'm going to curve it a little bit more here and then cut it off a little bit here. Then we'll follow it to the tip of the toe and then add a little curve here to show the toe pointing. Okay. Before we get into the final details of the costume, I'm going to show you a little easy trick to draw the hands here. So for this hand, I'm going to draw this shape. It's kind of like picturing if she has a spatula at the end of her arm instead of a hand, right? So we get this shape in place first. And then from here, so I'm picturing this is the palm. Now, if we have the palm in place, all we have to do is have the fingers now. So we're gonna get the thumb stretching out this way. And you know, when Spider-Gwen or any of the spider characters shoot their webs, their fingers are really stretched out. So that's the feeling that I want to get here. So this finger is going to stretch out this way. This one, I'm going to follow this rhythm of the palm and stretch it out this way. Okay, you see that? How this line goes straight into here. And then here we're just going to draw the two fingers curled in, shooting the webs. Not even going to worry about erasing these guidelines for now. Sometimes if you draw your guidelines lightly enough, once you add your final details, and if you make these lines dark enough, those guidelines sometimes just fade away into the background. Okay, now for this hand, it is in a fist holding on to the webs. So I'm going to draw the palm shape like this. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller here to fit it all in, but the palm shape is like this. I do want it bent towards this way so it looks like her wrist is bending in this way. Then from here, you add the thumb. Okay, the thumb is curled in, holding onto the webs, and this finger is curled this way and follows here. Okay, add a little line where the fingers meet. And then from here, the final details of her costume, I'm going to go to the chest and make this shape here. It's going to be like an M shape going from the center here and here. Okay. She has these points on her waist. I'll get rid of this midline now just to clear it out. Okay. Her shoes, the ballerina shoes, you could go from the heel and then up for the top strap, and then follow that top strap on the other side, go out to the toes. And then the strap, she wraps them around her ankles, so you could add as many straps as you want or as little. I put 3 here, so I'm just gonna stick to 3 on this one as well. And same thing here. The heel is being covered up, so we're not seeing the full part of the shoe. We'll go out this way and down here from the toe in, and then down to match this. Then again, we're going to add our straps here, here. I'll put 2 on the side. Okay, and then on the inside of her arms here, she has these web patterns, so I'm going to draw a point going this way, and then a point going down this way. And then the same thing here. The way the arm ended up on this one is it's pretty much right alongside the head here. So I'm just gonna draw this little part peeking out. But anyways, inside this little area, there is gonna be another web pattern. So just like we did inside the hood, we draw the parts going across first and then cross hatch it with these webs. Again, you could put as many or as little as you want. Just make sure you fill in the space. And then the final part, which could be the most fun, is adding the webs. And how I like to draw webs when I'm drawing any spider character is, I'll draw the main web first, and then there's all these swirlies going around it. This part I'm gonna have shoot out, the part she's grabbing onto, that's sticking to whatever it's sticking to. So I'll draw these swirly parts, just some little extra details. Then here, shooting out of her wrist, so we'll shoot them out this way, and then add some swirls. Okay, so let me give mine one last look just to make sure I didn't forget anything. Do want to clean up a little bit as well. go. And now we have our drawing of Spider-Gwen all done. That's gonna be it for this video. Hope you all enjoyed, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.